College football is here again for another week. We're in the middle of the season. It's really exciting. We're finding out who's posers. We're finding out who's championship contenders. And this week, we have some more really entertaining games coming up. So I'm going to talk about that and more. But first, I'm Brian. I am not Bobby Durkins, not on this channel at least. I do appreciate you joining me here, hopping on. And if you're someone who's been watching me for a long time, I'm glad that you've stuck around for the abuse. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It's free. And if you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, there is a join button below the video. Unless you're on iPhone, you won't see it. So one of tomorrow's big games is right off the bat at 12 o'clock. And it's the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions of Penn State. This game's going to be on Fox. Right now, the Buckeyes are about a 4.5-point favorite at home, which tells me a lot. That tells me what faith Vegas has in Penn State. Now, I'm someone who is hard on teams who in the preseason and up until they blow it, has a team who is unproven shoved down my throat. If you've watched my Bobby Durkins alternate personality, where you get to see some of my personality mixed with just pure insanity, or if you've been watching this show, this channel over the past year, you know one thing I cannot stand is for a team to be shoved down my throat, especially year after year. Now, to say that a team is good and that they have potential is not shoving them down my throat, but consistently rating them in the top 10 and acting like they're God's gift to football. And I have to hear about them, and I have to watch these guys who they must be just taking the paycheck and saying whatever, and that's fine. Okay, that's fine, but that annoys me. I mean, thank God that YouTube opened up to where guys like myself can just come out and just throw the bullcrap flag. But Penn State is one of those teams for me. Texas has been one of those teams for me. Michigan has been one of those teams for me, except for the past 2 years. Georgia has been one of those teams for me until the past 2 years. So I am far from a Buckeyes fan. You know that, obviously. And I'm not saying that Penn State doesn't stand a chance in this game, but that they're ranked number 7 because they're 6-0 coming into this game against Ohio State. And you go and you look at their schedule, and it's nothing impressive. They beat an okay West Virginia team. After that, they've played Delaware, Illinois, Iowa, Northwestern, and UMass. Okay. The only thing that I can give them in this is that they've beat bad teams bad. That's one of the ABCs of football, in my opinion. That's how I look at teams. And people ask me, they go, hey, can you tell me how you look at football? What is it that drives you? And I look at schedule, and let me pause there too. A lot of people, as I name this out, they're going to go, well, duh. Well, not all of you, but a lot of you throw the ABCs of football out the window when you start talking about teams you might possibly like or the media has told you is really good. And they get some former Big Ten player of the year, some former NFL football player, some former successful coach who's, they're paying a lot of money to do commentary. He starts breaking down why they're good, and all of a sudden you go, yeah, I see it. And then 3 weeks later, after this team drops 2 losses, you go, oh, man, yeah, they were a bust. Are you going to continue to be duped? Because if you stick to the ABCs of football, you'll figure it out. Schedule matters. Who's coaching your team at all positions matters. How they historically do in big games under said coach and said staff matters. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. So in this game, I'm going to get right, and I really didn't mean to spend so much time on Penn State and Ohio State. But this is like the biggest game tomorrow, basically. Last week was Washington and Oregon. The week before that was Texas and Oklahoma. Notre Dame on the, or not Notre Dame, Ohio State on the other side. The only big opponent they really played was Notre Dame. Went down to the wire. They won. But they, like Penn State, have played some bad teams. Youngstown State, Western Kentucky, Indiana, Maryland, Purdue. You could step back and say, but Brian, they beat bad teams bad. You're right. So this should be an entertaining game, but I just see the Buckeyes winning this one. Get into the comment section before I go any farther here. Got Ridge Runner in here. Hey, man, thanks for the drop. Donald Walker, our defense will win this game for us. Talking about the Clemson game. One of the members of the Not Bobby Durkins Club, my buddy Parker Henderson. Guten Tag to you, my friend. Good to see you. Tiger Man, if our offense does not come out looking sharp, we will get clobbered. He's talking about the Clemson game. By the way, folks, if you were watching this and you're like, hey, did Brian do a preview of the Clemson-Miami game? Actually, I did, and there it is, the prediction. You'll see that on my channel. Once again, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Also, my Not Bobby Durkins. If you're new here and you're like, who's Bobby Durkins? That doesn't make sense. Bobby Durkins is my alternate ego that's been around way longer than my YouTube channel. I've only been on here for a year as Not Bobby. He did a video a couple of days ago about Beamer breaking his foot. Yeah, Bobby is nuts, and you should get to know him. A lot of Clemson people hate him, so trust me, it's fun. But last, before I go any farther, I want to talk about some of my sponsors. If you look in the description below, you're going to see 4puttcarts.com. 4Putt Carts, they are a snack and beverage cart service for golf courses and special events. I used to work at a golf course. I've worked the big tournaments. I'm going to tell you, you're going to get overwhelmed. Even if you do have cart service, reach out to them, step up your game. You don't want bad publicity for your golf course, especially a big event. Nobody wants that. If you don't have cart service, you need to get them out there at least every now and again. I mean, come on, step up your game. And then for events, you'll love it. For special events, you need to get them out there because it just livens up everything. I mean, people will be like, oh, there's snacks and beverages out here. We hang out. We talk. I'm telling you, go check them out. Tell them that you heard about them from me. Also, working on a giveaway, giving away one of these small versions of this. We want to give away 3 of these, courtesy of the Sawmill Shop, thesawmillshop.com. The link is below. Reach out to them. Let them know that Bobby Durkins, or not Bobby, or whoever I think I am, was talking about. So, Tiger Man said he watched it and thought it was hilarious, the Bobby Durkins deal. So I'm glad you like that, my friend. Glad you like that. So let's get into the schedule for tomorrow. I'm going to go faster. Oklahoma, they were off last week. They're 6-0. They're playing UCF, 12 o'clock tomorrow. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm not expecting UCF. I want to say UFC. UCF, I'm not expecting them to just come in and beat Oklahoma. It's in Norman. The Sooners are 17.5-point favorites. But Malzahn, one of the great things about Malzahn is that when he is coaching against a big team, he always brings his A game. The problem is he lost B games. He lost some C games here and there at Auburn. Had he figured out how to be more consistent, Auburn might have one more national championship in the past 10 years, and he would probably still be the coach there. But don't be surprised if he comes in and he has his guys coached up to play this game. We see this out of him all the time. Oklahoma comes off that big game. So you go from Texas and all the implications and all the importance on that game and what it could do for the rest of the season, setting the tone for you not only in the conference, but most importantly in the college football playoff. You take a week off, and then you have Central Florida. You don't have to get. It's like, what? Don't be surprised if the Sooners come out a little slow. Brent Venables, by the way, I miss him, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I miss what he brought to the table at Clemson. A team who is undefeated, and nobody's talking about them. More and more people are starting to talk about them. They've flown under, no pun intended. The Falcons they've flown below the radar. The Air Force Falcons are 6-0. They're playing Navy tomorrow. Navy's 3-3. Air Force is 6-0. They're in the top 25. They're a 10-point favorite. Hopefully they'll get it done. Now, a game I'm going to have a very special guest on tonight at 6:30, and I hope you'll join me. You're like, why would I join you for a team that's not Clemson? Well, A, because it's my show, and it's going to be fun. And B, the guy I'm having on is just a really cool guy. To talk about Tennessee and Alabama tonight, which I did a preview for it, I'm having Sports Talk J, John Chapman from Sports Talk J channel. He's coming back on the show. He's been on the show. Every time he comes on the show, people love it. And transparently, I really like having him on the show. I know you're going to be shocked, but not everyone in the YouTube world is fun to interview or to have on your show. John is incredible. And tonight at 6:30, we're going to talk about Alabama and Tennessee. As I said, I did a preview for that. If you want to watch it, go check it out. We know what happened last year, but that was last year. That was last year. That was one of the most entertaining games of the year, and one of the most entertaining games for Tennessee fans in quite a long time. The problem is Joe Milton, in his 6 years of being in college football, with all of his world-class skills, he can run like a gazelle. He can flick his wrist and throw a football 90 yards. I mean, you and I, if we tried to throw the ball 50, 60 yards, we'd blow a hemorrhoid. This guy just flick his wrist. The problem is he has not developed his decision-making in 6 years of college football. So it takes all of his skill that he has, natural ability given to him by God, and abilities that as he's worked out, he's mined, like mining gold, extra abilities. The problem is he does not, 6'5", 240, 250 pounds. His decision-making is not there. And he has to go in and play an Alabama team who, if you look at their quarterback and you go, I can't believe Milroe did that. Milroe is a sophomore. Joe Milton has been in college football, 2 different programs, 6 years. So if Milroe makes a dumb mistake, remember he had to play behind Bryce Young. Had to think about that for a second. So I'm just telling you straight up, folks. This is going to be an interesting game. I picked Tennessee to lose this game in Bryant-Denny Stadium. It was not a blowout. It was not a blowout. But it's a mess. That's a mess of a game. Moving a little quicker. Washington State and Oregon's getting together. Oregon's 5-1 coming off their first loss this past week. Field goal kicking has been a problem for teams this year. Clemson loses the Florida State game, which, by the way, Clemson shouldn't have had to trot out a kicker to tie that game up when they were up by 2 touchdowns. They blew that lead. And then they should have had more than one capable kicker instead of having to call up a kid who had totally different plans in life. He was about to move to New York, and he gets a call to come up here to Clemson and be the kicker against the Florida State Seminoles. So, need to be very careful there. Oregon, their kicker missed, for someone who plays that level of football, a makeable field goal. It wasn't like he was lining up 50 plus yards out with snowy wind blowing in his face. They come off of that. Washington State has been playing good football until recently. They just got thumped by Arizona. Yeah, I mean, Arizona beat them, I think. This is off the top of my head, 44-6, something like that. Right now, Oregon, and this game will be 3:30 tomorrow at Oregon. They're a 20-point favorite. Haven't mentioned lines much here. The line is 61. I take the over. Our feathered foe from Columbia, South Carolina, as Bobby Durkins calls it, the butt crack of South Carolina, will be playing at Missouri, 3:30 tomorrow. The Gamecocks, who's 2-4, is playing the 6-1 Missouri Tigers, who's 6-1. They lost their first game in a close one to LSU. I called that LSU would win that game. I was kind of hoping that Missouri would win, but they didn't. They barely lost it, and then last week came out and they put to bed yet another team that the media shoves down our throat every year when they go 3-0, and that's Kentucky. Kentucky is always they're always telling us, man, Stoops is doing hey, listen, I imagine coaching football at Kentucky is not easy. All right. So I'm not going to go off on Stoops. I'm not going to belittle what he's done. I'm just going to tell you that I just read one of the comments. It's great. I'm just going to tell you that Kentucky, I'm just tired of hearing about Kentucky. I'm tired of it. Hey, make a deal with me. Let's wait until next year when they're 8-0 to start talking about whether they've improved or not. Well, what happened if they don't go 8-0? Then we don't talk about them other than, Kentucky won today. All right. Instead of pulling out, championship banners, trying to figure out where to put it up in the stadium. Parker Anderson. But, Brian, we beat Alabama last year, and the River has a goalpost to prove it. How would you pick us to lose? Hey, listen, I have some good Tennessee fans who are realistic. But just like every fan base, I had one guy who came on my comment section. He posted in my comment section on my Tennessee Alabama preview and said, Milton's good enough. Clemson should know. And I'm like, I told you that Clemson saw a Joe Milton that no college football team has ever seen. That when he's playing really good talent, he always blows it. He beat Clemson that night. It's in history. It's done. Clemson can't change it. But I also said that was the only game in the entirety of his career that he's ever showed up in. Beating Vanderbilt by a bunch of points, that's Vandy. Come on, guys. But yeah, it's not going to be good. Tiger Man says, have you seen the new video promoted on TigerNet with a couple preparing for the new SC Gamecock baby? No, I have not seen that. I imagine it's funny. Taco Gaming's in here. Got SC Country. Got Mr. 72. Let me see. I'll be at the Notre Dame. Would love to meet you. You know what? I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do in the Notre Dame game because that's my birthday. That week I turned 41. So I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to go or not. Yeah, if I'm there, I would love to meet you as well. What's up, guys? Bobby, meet me in Detroit tonight to go see Kiss on their final tour. I don't think if I get in the car, I can make it to see Kiss tonight. But you be safe in Detroit because that's a thing. And you tell Gene Simmons I said hello. Tell Gene Simmons I said hello. What an interesting guy. Is interesting the word? Going back to the Gamecocks in Missouri, I got to ranting about Kentucky. And by the way, folks, if any of you are watching this and you're like, man, he's going longer today, I've been purposely trying to cut down my videos to 15, 16 minutes long. Today, I'm just talking college football. So if someone's watching this later on, you're like, spit it out. It's like, I have other videos, I do spit it out. But this is not one of them. This is finally Friday, college football, Friday talk, Friday, whatever. How many times I can say Friday? I don't have my glasses, and I'm looking up at my other computer over here. Let's keep going. South Carolina and Missouri. South Carolina, I'm going to tell you this. They have, and I hate to say this, they have some pieces in place. Spencer Rattler has actually played much better than what I anticipated. Xavier Legette. But the problem is, well, the rest of the day. I mean, blowing it to Florida like he blew it to Florida, that's not a good Florida team to blow it to. Losing to a Danny Werfel type Florida team, a Tim Tebow led Florida team, even a Kyle Trask Florida team, you would be like, they were a good team. Now, I know some Florida fans are going to be, you can't compare a Kyle Trask team to that. That was the last good team you had. Sorry. That's the reason I'm going there. That was the last good team that you had. Wasn't great. It was the last good team you had. And you blew it. You're now 2-4. You go to Missouri, but the underdog in this game has always been a problem to whoever the favorite is. So right now, Missouri is a 7.5 favorite. So put this in terms, you can get around a touchdown favorite. They believe that, obviously anybody could lose the game, but they believe that at home 7.5, there's a good chance that you're going to ink this one out. But then again, you look back, you said that's at home for Missouri. That's how little Vegas believes in Missouri's dominance at home. 2-4 South Carolina. Will they go 2-5? Will they go 2-5? We will see. Texas will play Houston this week. Houston came off of a crazy last-second win over West Virginia this past week. I think it played on Friday. I think the game was on Friday or Thursday. I can't remember. And it was odd because seeing Dana Hoverson, I think that's his name. Hoverson. I don't know. The guy with the messed up hair. Beat Clemson 70-33, and you're like, oh man, they are here. They're going to dig, and they fell apart. He ended up leaving, taking the job at Houston. And so West Virginia scores almost a last-minute touchdown, left enough time for Houston to throw up a Hail Mary, and they caught it and won, or they would be 2-4 right now. Okay? Texas, on the other hand, they're coming off of that close loss to Oklahoma. They're a 23.5-point favorite going to Houston. If you're the Longhorns, you just get business done. Don't get caught looking back. Play this game, win this game, move forward to the next game. But there's no more. I have a friend of mine who is a recording musician. He records. People hire him to record songs for their albums. The guy's brilliant. I mean, just absolutely brilliant. And he told me one time, he said, the most important song you'll ever play is the one that's in front of you. Texas, the most important game that you'll ever play is not 2 weeks ago. It's right now. You have to focus on this one. It's a crazy game. North Carolina, unless something happens, they're going to win against Virginia. Virginia's 1-5. North Carolina is a 23.5-point favorite. Auburn and Ole Miss gets together. Hugh Freeze's old employer. It's funny, they replaced Hugh Freeze for, his discrepancies, and they hire Lane Kiffin. I call Lane Kiffin the Bill Clinton of college football. S.A. Country says Kiss is his favorite band. Ole Miss is a 6.5-point favorite. I mean, Auburn's 3-3. They had played well almost every game, and then they got blistered this past week. I think it was LSU, wasn't it? Let me click on this. Yeah, it was LSU. I mean, just go over Auburn. Auburn was 3-0. Then they lost to Texas A&M by 17 points. That's not good. They lost by 7 points to Georgia. Played Georgia very well. Had Brock Bowers, who's injured, not played that game. They might have won. In fact, I think they would have. LSU came in, beat them by 30. It's interesting to see how this game's going to turn out. Let's keep going on down the list. By the way, if you're watching now and you're like, I'm going to check out here in just a second, just to let you know, just to remind you, we'll be doing the giveaway for these. I'm trying to figure out the time frame. We'll cover shipping. We'll send it out to you. Check out the sawmillshop.com. Also check out fourputtcarts.com, their snack and beverage cart service for special events and golf courses. Hit them up at the link below. Let them know that you heard about them from me. And I do appreciate it. If you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, there is a join button. It is so flipping cheap. You can ask Parker Henderson. You can ask his brother Chase, Graf Nar, who's normally in here. You can ask him. It's so cheap, you won't even notice it. But you'll be supporting the cause. Or if you want to offer a super thanks in the chat section, you go for it. I won't stop you. But I appreciate you being here. Most of all, subscribe. It is free. It's a great way to support the channel. Duke and Florida State. Now I want to talk about this for a second. Every fan base has these fans. You go, what fans, Brian? That they go from losing a lot, badly, and then they start to come back. Last year was a 10-3 football season for Florida State. Now, granted, the three most important teams they played, they lost 3 games in a row. Literally 3 games in a row. But that's last year. I can't talk about that. We're talking about this year. Florida State's 6-0. They beat Clemson. Deal with it, Brian. You're awfully salty about that. You have hate in your heart, Brian, towards the Florida State Seminoles. Yeah, I'm not thrilled my team lost to you. But what is funny about this is I called and I did a prediction video this week for the Florida State Duke game. And what is so interesting about this is that I called Florida State to win somewhere along the lines of 35-17. I complimented Jordan Travis and how well he played against Clemson. That made me more impressed with him, that he stood out there and just kept taking it, getting hit, getting up, throwing, getting hit, getting up, continue to play. But because I didn't go fumbling over myself and foaming at the mouth and giggling like a medicated schoolgirl over the Florida State Seminoles, I somehow am not giving them the credit that's due. Even one came on my site and said this, and I offered these so you can chuckle. Said, well, I'll let Clemson fans doesn't want to accept it, but half the team was sick. I was like, huh. Isn't that what y'all said the week before when you almost lost to Boston College? Half the team was sick. So anytime you don't play that well, you're sick. Florida State plays the Duke Blue Devils, whose quarterback, we still don't know if he's going to play. And I'm going to say this, don't send Riley Leonard out there to get hurt even more. As much as you want to play this game, as much as you want to win this game, as much as you want to put forth your best effort, protect him, send in Bellin or Beelan, however you pronounce his name. You're 5-1. Keep the morale of the team up. Florida State's a 14.5-point favorite. I called them to win by 17 or 18 points. It's at home. They're playing good football. And if you do send Riley Leonard out there, protect him at all costs. Call plays that's going to work with his lack of mobility. Because if you have a high ankle sprain, you have a lack of mobility. You're going to have to be hocked up on more drugs than the Tenderloin in San Francisco can provide you to get through that game. I'm going to leave that right there. Eric, stirring the pot again. Thank you, Eric, for being here. Eric, crazy. Does Duke stand a chance? A very small one. A very small chance, but I see Florida State winning this game. Utah and Southern Cal plays 8 o'clock tomorrow night. That's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be at Los Angeles. USC is only a 7-point favorite. Ty Whittingham has this ability to beat them. It's just I don't believe Cam Rising's going to play this game. I think Cam Rising's done for the season. Let's just go ahead and get to that place. And why trot him out to play 2 or 3 games unless you know that the NCAA will not give him medical leave? I don't know his history there. I don't know if they've given it to him before, and that's a moot point. I don't know. But even with the possibility of Cam Rising not playing, Southern Cal, who is, I mean, they're at home. They have a bunch of talent. They're still only a 7-point favorite against a team without their starting quarterback. It's crazy. And I probably missed a few games, but I'm going to end here. Clemson and Miami. Clemson's a 3-point favorite. I think they were 3.5. It really doesn't matter. Both teams are 4-2. Both teams need to win tomorrow night. Now, as I said earlier, I recorded a preview a couple of days ago, the prediction. And I had a lot of good comments on it. I've had a lot of good Miami fans show up. A few who I think they've lost their mind, but most think, hey, it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a close game. Now, I will, unless something changes tomorrow night, I will do a pregame show for the Clemson Miami game, a halftime report, and a postgame show. Whether we win or lose, now I called us to win the game by 3 points. That's my prediction. Whoever comments next gets one of the small Tiger Wood cutouts. Go. By the way, Eric can say that. Eric can say that, by the way. I'll just leave it at that. Eric, what happens if I comment next? Daddy-O was next, and Tiger Man was next. Eric, do we want to give 2 of them? Text me. Daddy-O was just throwing in a comment. Tiger Man says he won. I don't know. We can work this out. Yes, they both won. So Daddy-O and Tiger Man, you win a cutout, a Clemson cutout. You said I relinquish y'all. What do you mean? All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Folks, we're doing this live right here. So if I seem lost, I am. Let me see. If you will send, fine, I'll take it. Daddy-O and Tiger Man, and please tell me that it's you. Send an email right there to bobbydurkins@gmail.com. bobbydurkins@gmail.com. I just put it there in the comments section. Send me your address, and we will send you one of these. So congratulations, and thank Eric. Perfect. Keith says, Josh Peck claims the wrong team is favored. I don't see how I got Clemson by fourth team. Keith, Keith, I see a closer game than that. I mean, I hope they win. I hope they win. I hope Clemson wins by 14, but I see them winning the game by 3. I'll go ahead and tell you. But I would not be shocked if Miami won. Because the most important stat for Clemson is the scoreboard. That's every team's most important stat when it comes to playing the game. And that is the problem. Mind of Alexander says Penn State, Ohio State. I have Ohio State winning the game. Keith says, and I'm an FSU guy. And Keith started watching, I think, during this whole FSU thing. Maybe you started. I think you were watching before the FSU Clemson game, and I appreciate you being here. Jeffrey Sires in here. I'll tell you this, folks. I'm getting text messages, and I'm about to have to end the show, but just stick with me for a second. This is a must-win for both teams. So hopefully, out of desperate play calling, we'll have a very entertaining game. That's my hope. I hope it's an entertaining game. I hope my guys win, right? But how Miami has went down, you have to wonder what's going on psychologically with them. Turn around, look at the Clemson Tigers. Had Clemson came out and won that Wake Forest homecoming game, I called them to win 41-10. And you know me, I'm really honest about Clemson. Like, to a point, people can't stand me. They're like, dude, I am so flipping tired of you and your negativity, and you're always critical with Dabo. No, I'm not. I'm critical when he makes moves that I totally disagree with, and then you continue to see the program do this. But had the offense came out, and Jay Coop, you just said it, what I was thinking. I was at the Clemson Wake Forest homecoming game, and the offense looked so mediocre, so I really have no idea. If Clemson's offense would have came out and dropped 40 points on them, said, hey, look, we're in, we beat Syracuse. We turned the 3 turnovers from the defense into touchdowns, even a loss to Florida State. We came out, we produced. We're getting things rolling. You come out and you win that game against Wake Forest 35-10, 35-7, something like that. People would be like, hey, look, guess what? They're gaining momentum. They're hitting their midseason stride. This is exactly what we need. We have the bye coming up, and then you have the meat of the season. Miami, North Carolina State. You have Notre Dame coming to town. Georgia Tech, North Carolina. Then you go down to South Carolina. And I don't care if South Carolina doesn't win a game for the rest of the season. When it gets to that game in Columbia, South Carolina, Shane Beamer is going to bring it. And if Clemson's playing the way they were playing against Wake Forest, we'll lose a second year in a row. That's the reason you see teams hitting what's called mid-season stride. They've worked off the rust. They've got their timing down. And that would have brought a lot more faith into this Miami-Clemson game had Clemson went out and destroyed a terrible team. on homecoming of all days, but they didn't. So that is the reason why I'm sitting here going, I'm not sold. Jeffrey says, yeah, I was at the game as well as my wife looked at me and was like, what is going on? Did they just play to their competition like they normally do? Or are we just not that good? I don't know. Friend of mine, family member of mine, went to the game. They're not a Clemson fan. Someone was gave them tickets to go to the Clemson game. And it was like, hey, we've never been to a Clemson game. They pull for a totally different team. Totally different college football team, not in state. They were like, hey, we'd like to go. They went, said it was one of the most boring games they ever been to in their entire life. And I have to second that because I was watching it and I was bored out of my mind going, if we can't do it with this talent, when can we? Now it's time for all the Clemson fans who that pisses you off. Go ahead and let's go ahead and fire up the favorite comebacks to that. We can't win them all. Well, we did win that game, but just go ahead and do that. You can't win by 100 points or else, if you don't win by 100 points, the sky's falling. Yeah, I think we have a lot more problems than that. We actually, every time we play a team that has a pulse, recently, we've been losing to. Played Notre Dame last year, lost by 21 points. Lost to a South Carolina team we had no business losing to because of poor coaching. Well, that's a different coach. Made Joe Milton look like the second coming. Well, that's a different coach. Lost by 3 touchdowns to the Nerds of Duke. Coaching and a lack of preparedness lost us that Florida State game. You're just not happy. Somebody had to lose that game, but Wake Forest. Go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going. Durkin Donuts. That would be great. Durkin Donuts. I need to. Copyright. Trademark. Whatever. In all honesty, I think Clemson is just kind of average. Great history, lots of prestige, and way underperforming. Kind of makes you question what's wrong. I'm going to make this. I'm just going to say this. I love my team, but we're not dominant like we were. We're not, and we'll see. We'll see if things get fixed. We'll see. We will see. We will see. Just know that while we're fixing things, we are wasting the eligibility of great players. That while we're fixing things, that if we don't fix it fast, we won't be able to get that type of player in. So by the time the system or whatever we're going for is implemented, we won't have the players to implement that system. So we'll still be average. If you're average with really good players, and Clemson has some really good players across the board, really, really good players across the board, think what will be like with a bunch of 3-star players. So, all right, folks, thank you so much for joining me. If you have not subscribed, subscribe. It's free. Hit the thumbs up, hit the join button. Thanks to my sponsors, the Sawmill Shop. So, thanks to the sponsors, 4puttcarts.com. Reach out to them. Daddy has already emailed me his address. So you will be getting one of these, my friend. And so I'm just waiting from a Tiger Man. Tiger Man, you were next. So email me, Tiger Man. Bobby Durkins at gmail.com. In fact, I would copy and paste it. Everybody misspells Durkins. Almost everybody misspells Durkins. They spell it with a U. They spell it with an I at the end. It's weird, but copy and paste that. Email me, and we'll send that over to you. And Eric, if you have not figured out, Eric owns the sawmill shop. Eric's fantastic. I've known Eric for years. And he says, for next giveaway on the next live stream, the first person to make Not Bobby break character and laugh gets the tiger. Yeah, you know it's not character. You know this is more me than Durkins. So if you ever got me to break Durkins, but I get what you're saying. So anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining me. Get your jokes ready. See if you can get me to break on the next live show. We'll send it out. Tiger Man, send us your mailing address. We'll send it over to you. Daddy has already sent his over. Folks, I will catch you later. Thank you to everyone. Remember, subscribe. As always, go Tigers.